In this video, I'm comparing the Shun Sora 6-inch chef's knife and the Global GS3 small cook's knife. This is about 5 inches or so. It's actually 13 centimeters. That's how they measure them out. It's sort of weird, I know. But either way, I wanted to compare and contrast because they are in the same price point, and many times people find themselves trying to choose between these two when they're choosing a knife set. Both of these knives have similar cutting angles. The Shun Sora is 16 degrees. The Global is 15 degrees, which is relatively similar, though the Global does get a little bit of an edge in terms of its cutting angle. And one of the important things to note, however, is that the Shun Sora actually has VG10 as its cutting edge, which is the gold standard in the knife making world. It's about 60 to 61 hardness, while the Global actually has Chromova 18 as the whole blade, which is a much softer steel, going at about 56 to 58. The end result is that there are pros and cons to both. On the one hand, this knife is going to hold and retain an edge much longer because it is harder. On the other hand, the Global can be abused much more because it's a softer metal. But I think that as long as you're using good knife skills, you're always going to want a harder edge. Next thing to note is the Shun is wrapped in stainless steel and welded on, which makes it much more resilient to damage and to rust and to pitting and to staining, and it gives us this gorgeous wave finish, which I'm very fond of. The Shun has a full tang essentially. It ends right here. It's a rabbit tang, but for all intents and purposes, it works the same as a full tang. While the Global actually has a hollow handle that's filled with sand to get it a correct weight they want, and then welded onto the blade. And it's really nice in terms of the weight that it gives the knife, but there have been stories about the weld breaking on manufacturer defect knives, and then you have this random, very sharp blade flying at your face, which no one really wants. Aside from that, they both have pretty standard warranties, and they actually have essentially the same warranty. Stick with me. This has a lifetime warranty. This is a 10-year warranty. But at the end of the day, both warranties only cover manufacturer defects, and manufacturing defects on knives show up in the first few months of ownerships, not after 10 years. So for all intents and purposes, the same warranty. But what's really nice is the Shun Sora comes with lifetime sharpening, which makes a big difference. Number one, it costs about $5 an inch at a reputable sharpener, which means that a knife like this at 6 inches would cost you roughly $30 or so to sharpen. And even then, you don't know if you can get the good knife back that you had given them, because there are always horror stories. The second thing to note is that the Global again uses softer steel, so it needs to be sharpened more often. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's ground very uniquely. It actually starts about a centimeter above the cutting edge, and a lot of knife sharpeners will refuse to work on this knife because when they're using whetstones, they're placing it on and they're just sort of going back and forth. They're not doing this weird rolling motion while they're sharpening it, so they can't really sharpen this knife the proper way. Either way, like I said, it's pros and cons. I think both have their purposes. I personally would prefer the Shun Sora because it is cheaper and it has all that stuff that I mentioned. But I'll put a link down below to both, and you can ask me any questions you want below, comments you want, or just any concerns you have. And otherwise, I will talk to you very soon.